Cosmic Legions has a great set of figures for all kinds of tastes. I'm not all in collecting them, but I pick and choose what they intrigue me the most. For example, the Task Sentry and the Science Officer are army builders that have great details, sacrificing the amount of paint ups for the price. They are not that cheap if you don't buy during the sale events, but are they still worth? And for what? Let's find out. The Task Science Officer in the lore is an in-between a scientist and a guard, a combat scientist maybe. So he assists and performs scientific experiments and can also hold his own in combat. The box is quite standard for Cosmic Legion figures. It contains the figure, held in place by plastic wires, plus all the accessories. For Horsemen figures, articulation seems to be particularly sensitive when initially unboxed, so it is a good practice to heat them up before stressing them too much. Of course, I ignore the recommendation, but I tend to be very kind and gentle with my action figures. No stress tests for me. Because of the armor, they are limited in the lateral raise, but the single joint at the elbow is pretty good, and the sculpt allows for a decent level of movement. Because of the lack of butterfly joints, it will be a nice challenge to aim the main rifle, we'll see. There are a lot of details in all of this white, so having fun with panel lining, brushes or else could give you some fun if you like painting your figures. And for getting this, you are probably this kind of person. By the way, I find the articulations quite good for the kind of posing that I had in mind, guarding, aiming, holding stuff and the likes. No need to pose as an acrobat in the circus or like holy fakir. I'm a very simple person and your mileage may vary, but besides the pearlescent all-white painting, it looks cool and feels good enough for me. Moving to the head, we have an helmet the head, which has a cool robotic vibe, and an unhelmeted one, which of course it is not human. It has a nice alien design that reminds me of a crossover between Admiral Akbar and the Pink Panther. It is awkward, yet interesting, but I personally love the robotic head more. Despite this, I will understand anybody going for this alien scientist idea. In addition, it is also possible to plug this huge collar that should hold the glass screen for dangerous environments, either biohazard and space environments. Given its main duties, I will say the former, but you never know. What you know is that there is no glass cover, so this big collar is just for the show. Who needs a proper fully enclosed suit when they already look so cool? Anyway, with a bit of an effort to make it stick in position, we now have our Science Alien Robot Officer ready to perform its duty. Anyway, you can just keep installing the collar. This is Cosmic Legions, and so customizations according to your tastes are the only certainty. Even when installing it, there is this small gap in the front that makes me doubt of the safety of the entire feature, but this is sci-fi, so we can think of some magnetic shielding there. He comes equipped with a full set of weapons, an additional pair of hands with 3 fingers, the usual transparent pegs that will try hard to disappear as soon as you open the box, and this blue hologram-like thing. It could represent anything, from a commander giving instruction to our science officer, to just the results of an autopsy being performed, or a search warrant being notified through the holonet. You decide, and nobody will complain. Nice thing with Cosmic Legions is the possibility to use these sockets to plug weapons, giving the look and feel of some magnetic attachment. And of course, our blue hologram is also designed to fit there, because even in this universe, checking your newsfeed is important, no matter what you are doing and where you are. There are 2 long pegs and 2 shorter ones that you can fit according to your needs, usually on the armor plates or the forearms. The weapons of the Science Officer are all painted in this silver metallic paint that you will probably want to improve in a few places. I will probably give the weapons a darker tone, which I think to be more fitting for fire weapons, adding also some lights for ammo or energy statuses. By the way, if you got so far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let me know if you like the Cosmic Legions, particularly if you paint these army builders and how. I'm still undecided, and I want to keep the main white color and add some additional bluish accents to specific armor plates like forearms, shoulders and lower legs, and probably the feet, and maybe some panel lining too. Do you keep them with factory settings instead? And you customize the Cosmic Legions instead, and how? Moving into the Sentry instead, we have the same box but more weapons, which seems fitting since sentries are guards by trade, so it makes sense for them to be more heavily armed. The first thing to notice is the color, which is a plain matte grey, while the Science Officer was painted in a pearlescent white. And now we only have the helmet middle part painted in yellow. It is a nice combination, but to be honest, between the two figures, the Sentry is the one screaming for painting. The armor sculpt is similar to the Science Officer in general design, yet there are some major differences like the head and the hands. Yup, 5 fingers is here instead of the 3 for the Science Officer, which makes this figure a great candidate for a human-based custom figure. Maybe a soldier, maybe a guy in a spacesuit, you decide. Now looking at all the accessories and equipment we have, there is a sniper rifle in addition, similar to what we saw for Ziri, but without the straps, a cool alien head with 6 eyes, and an armored collar with a glass dome. Which means that our Sentry does not trust the coolness factor when he operates in dangerous environments. He is a wise guy. Articulations are the same as for the Science Officer, and with a little effort you can get into all the nice aiming poses that you want. I'm still amazed by the sculpting of the armor. The design is amazing, and there are a lot of details for the people who love to paint their figures. The mold has very few defects, visible to my eye at least. I will try to keep the overall grey look, but also adding some accented color for some important panels like shoulders, forearms and legs. We will see what I will be able to do. Moving to the alternative heads, we have this nice unhelmeted head, which is really tempting for me. Like for the Science Officer, I can actually believe that this is an actual helmet for the very same alien. And when you go without the helmet in a hostile environment, you probably want to have a fully enclosed suit. At least this is what you would think when plugging the armored collar with its glass dome, and then noticing that empty slot between the collar and the chest. Anybody knows if that is left for some additional gadgets, like tubes maybe? For sure, I won't trust an environmental suit with such a gap when going in a dangerous place. While our Science Officer nerd is armed with silver weapons, the Sentry is armed with the same weapons but painted in a more practical black style. Again, it will need some additional paintwork, but at least it is a better base for it, at least in my opinion. There is no other difference, they are the same identical weapons in all these minor details. Finally, time to put our army builders side to side for admiring the main similarities and the small differences. I like how the Horsemen Studio has been able to design the figures so that they look different yet belonging to the same faction. Another army builder will be the female engineer, but I already presented her in the review for Ziri, check it out for learning more. Again, they all blend nicely in this universe, with Ziri and the engineer being only slightly smaller figures. Ideally, Ziri herself and these task officers should be enemies, but we know that in real world things are not that easy, and so we can imagine more complex interactions even in this fictitious universe. Joints for the figures are not bad, being a good compromise of stiffness and flexibility. The hip joints are more relaxed, especially for the Sentry, while the shoulders and the knee are the stiffest. The lack of double joints and butterfly joints is evident, but not as dramatic limitation as you would think, and I was able to get all the poses I wanted easily. But I am not a person who looks for anything extreme, especially when I have to deal with heavily armored soldiers with heavy suits. I personally like the design, and the $25 price tag when you get them at LegionCon or other events is fair enough. In my case, I had to pay $20 more for each because I don't live near any places where such events occur, and I must factor in the retail charge and the shipping cost. It is not bad in the end, but it makes the entire deal less appealing. If you are going to army build them, you will probably also want the additional hands pack for more variety. I got a couple of each because I like the design a lot, and I want to put them in some diorama that I have in mind. But your ideas may be different, and maybe you want to consider some other figures like Sligo Reeds, for example. Having said that, let me know if you also collect Cosmic Legions, and if you have the Science Officer and or the Sentry, and if you are happy with them. In the meanwhile, have a nice rest of the day and have fun with your customization ideas.